That night, I stood up to raise my glass and thank my colleagues. Behind me, his voice cut through like broken glass. "You think you're special." Then his fist came down. The champagne flute shattered. The entire room went dead silent. And what he never saw coming, my boss was standing right there, watching everything unfold. And I'd been gathering evidence for months. The promotion party he tried to ruin would become the stage for his downfall. My name is Kara Whitfield, and I've spent the last 7 years rebuilding bodies and spirits as a physical therapist at North Lake Rehab in Riverton, Ohio. Every morning at 5:30 a.m., I lace up my running shoes and pound the pavement along Quincy Street, where my one-bedroom apartment sits tucked between a Vietnamese bakery and a vintage bookstore. The rhythm of my feet hitting concrete has become my meditation, my way of processing the weight that Dale Mercer has pressed onto our family since he married my mother 15 years ago. Dale established his house rules when I was 14. No talking back. No questioning his decisions. No attitude. What started as discipline morphed into something darker, a systematic erasure of my voice. My mother, Elaine, perfected the art of looking away. "Don't make it worse, Kara," became her mantra, whispered in hallways after Dale's tirades, her hands nervously smoothing her skirt as if she could iron out the dysfunction. My sister Sloane chose a different survival strategy, become exactly what Dale wanted. She laughs at his crude jokes, praises his business ventures, and somehow always needs money. Designer bags hang from her arm like trophies while her credit cards max out one by one. Last month alone, she sent me 12 Venmo requests for groceries. Gas emergency. Family dinner contribution. I screenshot every message, every transaction, following the advice of my friend Lena Brooks, a paralegal at Summit Legal Clinic who's seen enough domestic situations to know documentation matters. The promotion letter arrived on a Tuesday. Lead clinician at North Lake Rehab. My supervisor, Marjorie Pike, called me into her office, her silver hair catching the afternoon light. "You've earned this, Kara. Your patient outcomes, your leadership during the Morrison case, exceptional work." She suggested a celebration dinner at the Almanac Room, the hotel's upscale restaurant. "Invite whoever you'd like. The department wants to toast your success." That evening, my phone buzzed. "Mom, sweetheart, I heard your wonderful news," Sloane told me. "We're so proud." Her voice carried that familiar tremor hope mixed with preemptive apology. "It would mean so much if we could join you. As a family." I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, noting the tension already gathering in my jaw. "Mom, it's a work event. Please, Kara. Dale's been better lately. He's talking about expanding Mercer Home Services. This could be good for everyone." Better. In our family's dictionary, that meant he'd only had 3 drinks instead of 6. It meant the insults came wrapped in jokes instead of raw fury. "If they come, everyone pays their own way," I said firmly. "No exceptions." Of course. Thank you, sweetheart." The week leading up to the dinner, Sloane's texts intensified. "Can't wait to celebrate BTW. Can you spot me for dinner? Promise I'll pay you back next week." I didn't respond. She sent follow-ups, crying emojis, prayer hands. It's what family does. I saved them all. Dale's shadow had loomed over every achievement in my life. High school graduation. Anyone can finish if they lower the bar enough. My PT certification. Waste of money when you could have just married well. Moving out at 22. You'll come crawling back. But I never did. I built my life methodically, brick by brick, a savings account he couldn't access, a career he couldn't sabotage, boundaries he hated but couldn't cross until now. The morning of the celebration, I ran my usual route, pushing harder than normal. The spring air carried the smell of rain and fresh bread from the bakery. My watch showed 5 miles in 42 minutes, my best time this month. Back in my apartment, I laid out my clothes, a navy dress that suggested authority without trying too hard, the watch my patients had given me after a successful group therapy program, simple pearl earrings I'd bought myself after my first promotion. My phone buzzed. Lena, remember what we talked about. If anything happens, document everything. Photos, witnesses, timeline. You've got this. Standing in my small kitchen, preparing my usual protein shake, I thought about the 14-year-old girl who'd learned to disappear at dinner tables, to make herself small and quiet. That girl wouldn't recognize the woman I'd become. Tonight was supposed to be about celebrating that transformation. I had no idea it would become the night everything finally shattered and the night I'd stop picking up the pieces for people who kept cutting me. The almanac room glowed with amber light, crystal glasses catching reflections like trapped fireflies. I arrived at 7:15 p.m., greeting my colleagues who'd already gathered near the bar. Evan Hart raised his beer in salute, and 2 junior therapists waved from their corner table. Marjorie stood near the windows, elegant in her trademark pearl necklace, discussing something with the hotel manager. 20 minutes later, they arrived. Dale entered first, his bulk filling the doorway, wearing a suit that looked expensive but fit poorly across his shoulders. The smell hit me before he did cologne, failing to mask bourbon, that familiar cocktail of false confidence. Elaine followed, her smile too bright, hands clutching her purse like a life preserver. Sloane sauntered in last, her new Michael Kors bag swinging, immediately scanning the room to assess who was worth impressing. "There's my successful daughter." Dale's voice boomed across the restaurant. Several diners turned. He'd already started the performance. They settled at our reserved table, Dale positioning himself at what he considered the head. He flagged the waiter with 2 sharp snaps. "Whiskey neat, double, and keep them coming." During appetizers, he held court, regaling my colleagues with stories about building his business from nothing and how nobody appreciates hard work anymore. Sloane chimed in with manufactured laughter, touching Evan's arm, complimenting Marjorie's necklace. My mother rearranged her napkin 17 times. When the entrees arrived, I stood to make a toast. The speech I'd prepared was simple, thanking my team, acknowledging our patients' trust, expressing excitement about implementing new therapeutic protocols. I was 3 sentences in when Dale's fork clattered against his plate. "Funny thing about success," he interrupted, words slightly slurred. "Some people forget where they came from, who kept a roof over their head." The table quieted. Marjorie's eyes narrowed slightly. "I'm grateful for all the support I've received," I continued, keeping my voice steady. "From my colleagues, mentors, and—" "But not family," Sloane interjected, her voice dripping false hurt. "Kara never mentions us. Too good for where she came from. Won't even help with a simple loan last week." "This is a professional celebration," I said quietly. Dale's face darkened, that familiar storm gathering in his eyes. "Professional. You think you're better than us. I've been carrying this family for 15 years while you play with people's sore muscles. I'm a licensed physical therapist. I help people recover from— You're an ungrateful bitch is what you are." The words cracked like a whip. Several people gasped. "Your mother and sister need help, and you sit there in your little apartment, hoarding money, thinking you're special." I set down my champagne glass carefully. "I've established clear financial boundaries. I'm not responsible for boundaries." Dale stood so fast his chair scraped backward. "You think you're special?" The question hung in the air for a heartbeat. Then his fist connected with my face. The champagne flute in my hand shattered on impact. Pain exploded across my cheekbone. I heard my mother's strangled cry, someone's sharp intake of breath, the crystalline sound of breaking glass hitting marble floor. Warm, liquid champagne and blood dripped from my hand where a shard had sliced my palm. Time seemed to fracture. I saw Marjorie rising from her seat, her face transformed by shock and fury. Evan jumped up, moving between Dale and me. 2 hotel security guards materialized from nowhere. The entire restaurant had gone cemetery silent. Dale stood there, chest heaving, fist still clenched. "Get up!" he snarled. "Stop making a scene." Blood dropped onto the white tablecloth, each splash geometrically perfect. I pressed my napkin to my bleeding hand and stood slowly, my legs surprisingly steady. "You just assaulted me," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "In front of 30 witnesses." "Drama queen," Sloane muttered, but her voice shook. Marjorie stepped forward, her phone already out. "I'm calling the police. Kara, don't move. We need to document everything." She turned to the security guards. "This man just committed assault. He doesn't leave until law enforcement arrives." "This is a family matter," Dale growled, but his bravado was cracking. "No," I said, finding my voice's steel core. "This is assault and battery. This is a crime, and I'm pressing charges." My mother reached for me. "Kara, please, let's just go home and—" "No." The word came out sharper than intended. "I'm done going home and pretending this didn't happen. I'm done protecting him from consequences." The hotel manager appeared with a first aid kit and incident report forms. "Ma'am, we've called for paramedics and police. Our cameras captured everything." I looked at Dale, really looked at him, this man who'd terrorized us for 15 years, who'd made me feel small and worthless, who thought his fists could still control the narrative. "You picked the wrong night," I told him quietly, "and the wrong audience." The emergency room's fluorescent lights made everything look harsh and clinical. At 9:47 p.m., a nurse photographed my swollen cheekbone from multiple angles while I held a small placard with my case number. The cut on my palm required 4 stitches. Each image went into the official record evidence that couldn't be dismissed as family drama. "You'll have bruising for about 2 weeks," Dr. Martinez said, gently probing the swelling. "No fractures, but I'm documenting soft tissue trauma consistent with blunt force impact. This report goes directly to the police file." Marjorie had followed me to the hospital, refusing to leave despite my insistence she didn't need to stay. "Northlake Rehab takes employee safety seriously," she said, pulling out her phone. "I'm activating our employee assistance program. They have counselors who specialize in domestic violence situations, and more importantly, they have lawyers." By 11:30 p.m., I sat in the police station giving my statement. Detective Rahman, a woman with kind eyes and meticulous notes, walked me through each moment. The hotel had already sent their security footage 3 different angles showing Dale's fist connecting with my face. "The hotel has 14 witnesses who've agreed to provide statements," she said. "Your supervisor was particularly detailed in her account. This is a strong case. Ms. Whitfield." Back in my apartment at 2:15 a.m., I couldn't sleep. Instead, I opened my laptop and began building my own case file. Screenshots of Sloane's money requests over the past year totaling $3,700, text messages from Dale demanding I contribute to the family or calling me selfish. The photo Lena had helped me take of the bruise on my arm from last Christmas, when Dale had grabbed me for disrespecting him by leaving dinner early. Lena called at 7 a.m. sharp. "I heard what happened. Marjorie called me. Hope that's okay. I'm connecting you with Rebecca Chen, an attorney who specializes in these cases. She's expecting your call." "I need more than just the assault charge," I told her. "There's something else. Remember those credit alerts I started getting last year? The ones you thought were errors? I pulled my full credit report at 3 this morning. There's a Kohl's card opened in my name 6 months ago. The billing address is Dale's Garage. Same with a Home Depot commercial account." Silence. Then, identity theft on top of assault. "Kara, this changes everything." The next 3 days blurred together. Rebecca Chen, a sharp attorney with an impressive track record, took my case pro bono through the EAP program. We filed for an emergency protection order, which the judge granted immediately based on the video evidence. Dale couldn't come within 500 feet of me, my home, or my workplace. But I wasn't done. I hired a private investigator through Rebecca's firm to look into Dale's business. What he found made my stomach turn. Mercer Home Services wasn't just unlicensed, it was built on fraudulent insurance certificates. Even worse, Dale had been using my professional credentials to add legitimacy to his bids, listing me as a medical consultant without my knowledge. "He's been submitting bids to Northlake Rehab," the investigator told me, sliding a folder across the table. 3 in the past month. using your employment there as an inside connection. I took everything to Marjorie and the compliance department. They launched an immediate investigation, blacklisting Mercer Home Services from all vendor contracts and reporting the fraud to state regulators. My phone became a battlefield. 43 missed calls from my mother, texts from Sloan calling me a vindictive bitch and threatening to expose what you're really like. Dale, through a cousin, sent a message offering to forget this misunderstanding if I signed a non-disclosure agreement and dropped the charges. I documented everything. The criminal case moved forward with surprising speed. The prosecutor, impressed by the evidence and witness list, upgraded the charges to felony assault and added identity theft, fraud, and harassment. Dale's bail was set at $50,000, which he posted using his house as collateral. Your documentation is impeccable, Rebecca told me as we prepared for the restraining order hearing. The credit fraud, the business fraud, the pattern of financial abuse, this isn't just about one punch anymore. It never was, I replied, organizing the evidence folders. The punch was just the first time he did it in front of people who wouldn't look away. Marjorie instituted new security measures at Northlake Rehab. My key card was recoded. Security was notified of the protection order, and HR documented everything in case Dale tried to interfere with my employment. You know what I find remarkable, Marjorie said during one of our check-ins. You're handling this like you handle patient care methodically, professionally, with clear objectives. She was right. I'd spent years rebuilding other people's bodies after trauma. Now I was rebuilding my own life, one legal document at a time. The difference was, this time, I wasn't trying to restore things to how they were before. I was building something entirely new, a life where Dale Mercer had no power at all. The rabbit hole went deeper than I'd imagined. My neighbor, Mrs. Nguyen from the bakery, approached me one morning with security footage from her camera. I thought you should see this, she said, pulling up video on her tablet. There was Dale, at 4:30 a.m., loading boxes from a delivery truck into his garage boxes addressed to me that I'd never ordered. Rebecca immediately subpoenaed Dale's financial records through the criminal case. What emerged was a systematic pattern of fraud spanning 3 years. The Kohl's and Home Depot accounts were just the beginning. He'd opened a Sam's Club membership, 2 gas station credit cards, and even attempted to lease equipment for his business, all using my Social Security number. The addresses vary, but they all trace back to properties he has access to, Rebecca explained, spreading documents across her conference table. His garage, a storage unit, even a P.O. box registered to Mercer Home Services. The total damage $18,000 in fraudulent charges. But the real revelation came when I cross-referenced his business records with Northlake Rehab's vendor database. Lena helped me build a timeline, and the pattern was undeniable. Every time Dale lost a bid at Northlake, a new credit account would appear in my name within weeks. He was funding his failing business with my identity. He's been using your employment as a selling point, the compliance officer at Northlake discovered. Look at this proposal. Our consultant has inside knowledge of rehabilitation industry standards. He's literally marketing your job as his qualification. I requested a meeting with Northlake's legal team. Armed with folders of evidence, I laid out the conflict of interest. He's not just using my name for credit fraud, he's compromising my professional reputation and potentially violating healthcare privacy regulations by implying access to patient information. The legal team's response was swift. They issued a cease and desist to Mercer Home Services, reported the fraudulent insurance certificates to the state licensing board, and notified all partnering facilities in the Riverton Healthcare Network. That evening, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, a photo of me leaving work, taken that day. You're destroying our family, the message read. I forwarded it immediately to Detective Rahman and Rebecca. The investigation expanded. Police discovered Dale had incorporated Mercer Home Services using falsified documents, claiming certifications he didn't have and insurance policies that didn't exist. 3 other healthcare facilities had nearly awarded him contracts based on these lies. This is wire fraud territory now, the prosecutor informed me. Federal charges? The FBI's Economic Crimes Unit wants to review the case. I spent my lunch breaks at the courthouse, filing paperwork, credit disputes with Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, fraud alerts with every bank that had issued cards, identity theft reports with the Federal Trade Commission. Each form was a small act of reclamation taking back my name. Digit by digit, Sloane's harassment escalated. She created fake social media accounts to message my colleagues, claiming I was mentally unstable and had attacked Dale first. She posted photos from family gatherings with captions about toxic siblings who choose money over blood. I screenshot everything, building a subfolder labeled defamation. Then came the discovery that broke my mother's remaining denial. While reviewing credit reports, I found a life insurance policy Dale had taken out on me 2 years ago, $500,000, with himself as the sole beneficiary. He'd forged my signature, answered the health questions using information stolen from my medical records. This is beyond financial fraud, Rebecca said quietly when I showed her. This suggests premeditation of a different kind. I confronted my mother with the policy documents. She sat in my apartment, hands shaking as she read through them. He said it was for the family's protection, she whispered. In case anything happened. In case anything happened. I repeated. Mom, he took out a policy where he profits if I die, after years of escalating violence. Do you understand what this looks like? She broke down then. 15 years of carefully constructed denial crumbling. I knew about some credit cards, she admitted through tears. He said you'd agreed, that it was to help the family business. I wanted to believe. While you were wanting to believe, he was stealing my future, I said, my voice steady despite the rage burning in my chest. Every credit point, every fraudulent charge, every forged document you stood by and let it happen. The investigation uncovered 17 different instances of fraud, 12 forged documents, and estimated damages exceeding $40,000 when including interest and fees. The State Contractors Board permanently revoked any chance of Mercer Home Services obtaining legitimate licensing. 3 healthcare facilities were considering civil lawsuits for attempted fraud. Dale's house of cards wasn't just falling, it was being methodically demolished, card by card, with his own fingerprints on every piece of evidence. You know what the ironic part is, I told Lena as we organized files for the federal investigation. He was right about one thing. I am special enough to document every crime, build an airtight case, and ensure he finally faces consequences. The power structure he'd built on lies and intimidation was crumbling, and for the first time in 15 years, I wasn't afraid of the falling debris. The gaslighting campaign began at 6:23 a.m. on a Tuesday. My mother's number flashed on my phone screen, followed by her broken voice. Kara, please. He's talking about losing the house. Can't we work this out as a family? By noon, I'd received 14 texts from various relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Family doesn't do this to family. Dale made mistakes, but prison. Your mother is having chest pains from the stress you're causing. Sloane escalated to social media warfare. She posted a photo of my college graduation, the one where Dale stood beside me, smiling with the caption, "Before she decided to destroy the man who paid for her education." Ungrateful, Chakan family traitor. The truth, I'd taken out $30,000 in student loans that I was still paying off. Dale hadn't contributed a cent. The anonymous threats started 3 days later. Emails from throwaway accounts. Drop the charges or lose your job. We know where you run every morning. Accidents happen to vindictive bitches. Rebecca immediately contacted the FBI cybercrime unit. These aren't random trolls, she explained. The language patterns, the specific details, this is coordinated. My apartment building's security footage revealed someone had been watching my home. A man in a baseball cap, face obscured, photographing my window from across the street. The same figure appeared in footage from 3 different days, always between 5 and 6 a.m., right when I left for my runs. I changed my routine, started varying my routes, installed new locks and a security camera. Every precaution felt like another bar on a cage I was building to protect myself from my own family. At work, mysterious complaints appeared. Anonymous calls to HR claiming I was mentally unstable and a danger to patients. Fortunately, Marjorie had anticipated this. She'd already briefed HR and security, creating a paper trail that showed the complaints started only after Dale's arrest. Classic abuser tactics. The domestic violence counselor from EAP explained, when they lose control physically, they attack your credibility, your support systems, your sense of reality. Then came the reconciliation letter from Dale's lawyer, a masterpiece of manipulation disguised as legal correspondence. Dale was willing to forgive my overreaction and drop any potential civil claims if I signed a non-disclosure agreement, dropped criminal charges, and paid him $25,000 for damaging his business reputation. He wants me to pay him. I laughed, but it came out hollow. It's an intimidation tactic, Rebecca assured me. He's desperate. The federal investigation has frozen his assets. This is what cornered animals do, they lash out. Sloane's financial harassment took a new turn. She applied for credit cards using variations of my information, claiming to be me with updated contact details. The applications were caught by the fraud alerts I'd set up, but each one required hours of phone calls to resolve. My mother stood on my doorstep one evening, uninvited. Kara, honey, I've been thinking. Maybe you misunderstood what happened at the restaurant. Dale's been under so much stress with the business. Mom, there's video footage. Videos can be misinterpreted. The angle, the lighting. 30 witnesses, Mom, including my boss. She shifted tactics. He's getting help. Anger management classes. He's really trying to change. I pulled up my phone, showing her the threatening emails, the stalking footage, the fraudulent credit applications from just that week. This is him trying to change. Those could be from anyone. The IP address is traced to his storage unit's Wi-Fi. I interrupted. The one where he's been hiding merchandise bought with my stolen identity. She crumpled then, sinking onto my doorstep. If you don't stop this, Sloane says she'll tell everyone about the time I asked, genuinely curious what fiction they'd invented. About your breakdown. After college, when you had to take those pills, I almost laughed. You mean the anxiety medication prescribed after years of living with Dale's abuse, the therapy I needed because of the trauma she's going to weaponize my mental health treatment. The truth was, I'd prepared for this too. My therapist had already written a statement for the court, documenting how my anxiety directly correlated with Dale's escalating abuse patterns. The next morning, Sloane made good on her threat. She sent emails to every Northlake rehab address she could find, attaching creative fiction about my history of mental instability and vindictive patterns of behavior. It caught them all in the spam filter. Marjorie had flagged our case to the tech team weeks ago. Your documentation saved you, Marjorie told me later. Every threat, every false accusation, you've created a perfect record of their harassment campaign. By the week's end, Detective Rahman had enough evidence to charge Dale with witness tampering and criminal harassment. Sloane was named as a co-conspirator. The federal investigation expanded to include conspiracy charges. They're not trying to reconcile, Rebecca observed, reviewing the latest batch of evidence. They're trying to break you before trial. Then they don't know me very well, I replied, adding another folder to our growing wall of evidence binders. Every attack they launched only strengthened our case. Every lie they spread created another criminal charge. The gaslight they'd tried to ignite had become a spotlight illuminating years of abuse for prosecutors, judges, and federal investigators to see. The invitation arrived through my mother's carefully rehearsed phone call. Dale wants to make amends, she said, her voice brittle with forced hope. A family dinner at the Almanac Room, same place as before, but this time to apologize. He's invited some business associates and family friends. He wants to make things right publicly, the way he wronged you publicly. Every instinct screamed trap, but Rebecca saw opportunity. Accept, but with conditions. She advised, document everything. If he's planning something, we want witnesses. My conditions were non-negotiable public venue with security cameras, hotel security notified in advance, my own witnesses present. I also required the dinner to be in the main ballroom, not a private dining room maximum visibility. Of course, whatever makes you comfortable, Mom agreed too quickly. The night arrived wrapped in spring rain. I entered the almanac room at 7:15 p.m., wearing a wire courtesy of Detective Rahman. Marjorie had insisted on attending, booking a nearby table with 2 representatives from Northlake's compliance department. Lena sat at the bar, pretending to read emails on her phone. The family table was strategically populated. Dale held court at the center, flanked by my mother and Sloane. 3 men I didn't recognize sat across from them, introduced as potential investors in Dale's business expansion. 2 couples from my parents' church filled out the tableau, their discomfort visible in rigid postures. Kara, Dale's voice boomed with artificial warmth. So glad you could make it. He'd lost weight, his suit hanging loose. The confident swagger had been replaced with something desperate, calculating. He stood, arms open as if expecting an embrace. I took my seat without acknowledging the gesture. Let's order first, he suggested, all performative charm. The salmon here is excellent. Through appetizers, Dale spun tales of business success, describing contracts that didn't exist, partnerships I knew had been dissolved. The investors nodded politely, but I caught them exchanging glances. One kept checking his phone. Of course, family businesses have their challenges, Dale continued, his eyes finding mine. Especially when there are misunderstandings. But that's why we're here tonight. To clear the air. The main course arrived. Dale stood, tapping his whiskey glass. The room quieted. I want to publicly apologize to my stepdaughter, he began, voice carrying across the ballroom. Things got out of hand at her promotion dinner. Emotions ran high, but family forgives family. Right. Kara. I remained silent. His jaw tightened. Which is why I'm proposing a fresh start. I'm even willing to hire Kara as a consultant for Mercer Home Services. $50,000 a year for minimal work. Family taking care of family. That sounds like a bribe, I said clearly. The investors shifted uncomfortably. One was definitely recording on his phone now. Dale's mask slipped. It's an opportunity. After everything this family's done for you. You mean the identity theft, the $38,000 in fraudulent charges, the forged insurance documents, gasps from the church couples. The investor with the phone leaned forward. So, those are baseless accusations. I pulled out my folder, laying documents on the table one by one. Credit card statements showing purchases delivered to your addresses. Incorporation documents for Mercer Home Services with forged insurance certificates. The life insurance policy you took out on me without my consent. You ungrateful. Dale started moving around the table toward me. There's more, I continued, my voice steady. The FBI found the storage unit where you've been hiding merchandise. They matched the serial numbers to purchases made with cards in my name. His face went purple. You stupid bitch. You think you've won? The federal prosecutor thinks so. They've added mail fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy charges. Your business accounts are frozen pending investigation. Dale lunged forward, but hotel security was already moving. They'd been positioned strategically since I'd arrived. Marjorie stood up at her table, phone out, recording everything. Mr. Mercer, you need to calm down, the security chief said firmly. She's destroying everything. Dale roared. My business, my reputation. Your business was built on fraud. I interrupted. Your reputation was a lie, and your control over this family ends tonight. One of the investors stood. We've seen enough. Mr. Mercer, consider our discussions terminated. They filed out quickly, distaste evident in their hurried exit. Dale turned to the church couples. You know me. Tell her what kind of man I am. They looked away, gathering their belongings in uncomfortable silence. Mom. I turned to her. Still think this is all a misunderstanding. She stared at the documents spread across the table. Evidence of years of systematic fraud, abuse, control. Dale, You said the credit cards were a mistake. You said, "Shut up, Elaine." He spat. If you'd raised her right, if she'd raised me right, I'd have reported you years ago. I finished. The compliance team from Northlake approached our table. Ms. Whitfield, we've documented everything. Mr. Mercer, you should know that any further contact with our employee will be considered harassment and reported to authorities. Dale stood there, deflated, his grand reconciliation dinner in ruins. The very stage he'd set for my humiliation had become his public undoing. This isn't over, he growled. Yes, I said, standing to leave. It is. The FBI will be in touch about the mail fraud charges. Your lawyer has their number. As I walked through the ballroom, passing the elegant tables with their crystal and candlelight, I heard Sloane's voice rising. Dad, fix this. You promised you'd fix this. But there was nothing left to fix. The truth was spread across the table in black and white, witnessed by the very people he'd tried to impress. Dale's face contorted as he lunged toward the table, trying to grab the documents. His hands were inches from the evidence when hotel security intercepted him, 2 officers flanking him immediately. The papers scattered across the pristine tablecloth credit reports, fraudulent applications, forged signatures, each one a nail in his coffin. Don't touch me, Dale roared, struggling against their grip. This is a setup. She's setting me up. The ballroom had gone completely silent. Every diner, every waiter, every pair of eyes focused on our table. Someone's phone flash went off, then another, and another. The scene was being captured from a dozen angles. Sir, you need to calm down, the security chief said firmly. But Dale writhed harder, his elbow catching one officer in the ribs. That's when Detective Rahman entered the ballroom. I hadn't known she was coming, but there she stood in plain clothes, badge visible on her belt. Behind her, 2 uniformed officers from Riverton PD. Mr. Dale Mercer, she announced, her voice carrying across the room. We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of wire fraud, mail fraud, aggravated identity theft, and conspiracy to commit fraud. This is bullshit, Dale's voice cracked. You can't. Additionally, Rahman continued, approaching slowly, you've just committed assault on a security officer and violated the protection order by attempting to approach Ms. Whitfield. Turn around and place your hands behind your back. The moment crystallized. Dale Mercer, the man who'd terrorized our family for 15 years, who'd built his empire on stolen identities and forged documents, was being handcuffed in the middle of the Almanac Room's elegant ballroom. Dale. My mother's voice broke through the silence. The lawyer, call the lawyer. Your lawyer is already at the station, Rahman informed him, securing the handcuffs. The FBI wants to discuss the federal charges. As they began walking him out, Dale twisted toward me, his face twisted with rage. You did this. You destroyed everything. Your own family. I stood up, my voice clear and steady. No, you did this. Every forged document, every stolen dollar, every threat. You built this house of cards. Dale. I just showed everyone what it was made of. Ma'am. A court officer I hadn't noticed before approached our table. Judge Morrison is available via video conference for the emergency protection order hearing, given the violation that just occurred. A laptop was produced, and within minutes, Judge Morrison's face filled the screen. The makeshift courtroom in the ballroom felt surreal crystal chandeliers above, federal charges below. Ms. Whitfield, the judge began, reviewing documents on his end. I see, Mr. Mercer has violated the existing protection order and committed new acts of harassment and attempted assault. Based on the evidence presented and witnessed tonight, I'm issuing a permanent restraining order, effective immediately. Dale, still in handcuffs by the entrance, shouted, You can't do this. This is my family. Mr. Mercer. Judge Morrison's voice was steel. One more outburst and I'll add contempt charges. You are prohibited from any contact with Ms. Whitfield. No calls, texts, emails, third-party contact, or physical proximity within 1,000 feet. Violation will result in immediate imprisonment. Sloane jumped up. This is insane, Kara. How could you— Ms. Whitfield. The judge continued. Would you like to include other family members in this order? I looked at my sister, at her designer bag bought with money she'd borrowed and never returned, at her face twisted with the same entitlement Dale had taught her. Not at this time, Your Honor, but I reserve the right to amend if harassment continues. The judge nodded. Granted. Mr. Mercer, you'll be held pending federal arraignment. Court is adjourned. The screen went dark. Dale was let out, his protests echoing through the lobby. The ballroom remained frozen, dozens of diners witnessing the complete dismantling of his carefully constructed image. Marjorie approached our table. Kara, are you all right? Better than all right, I said, gathering the scattered evidence. For the first time in 15 years, I'm free. My mother sat motionless, staring at the spot where Dale had stood. The house, she whispered. He put up the house for bail. If he's held on federal charges, then you'll have to figure out your life without him, I said, not unkindly, but firmly. The same way I did. Sloane was frantically texting, probably trying to access Dale's accounts before they were frozen. This isn't over, she hissed at me. When he gets out, he's facing 15 to 20 years on federal charges alone, Detective Rahman interjected, having returned after Dale's removal. The identity theft, the mail fraud, the wire fraud, and now witness tampering and violation of a protection order. Your father isn't getting out anytime soon. The word father made me flinch. He'd never been that. Not really. He'd been a terrorist in our own home, holding us hostage with fear and manipulation. I stood to leave, my evidence folder tucked under my arm. The entire ballroom watched as I walked toward the exit, my heels clicking on marble with newfound authority. At the doorway, I turned back one final time. My mother and Sloane sat at the demolished dinner table, surrounded by empty chairs and scattered documents, the ruins of Dale's final performance. From now on, I said, my voice carrying across the silent ballroom, you don't have permission to contact me. Not my body, not my name, not my future. None of it belongs to you anymore. The words, my Declaration of Independence, hung in the air as I walked through the doors, leaving them in the wreckage of the world Dale built. The hotel corridor stretched before me, fluorescent lights humming overhead. My heels echoed against marble as I made my way to the security office where Detective Rahman waited with final paperwork. The protection order required my signature, along with witness statements from tonight's spectacle. Initial here, sign here. Rahman guided, her voice professional but kind. The federal prosecutor will contact you within 48 hours about testifying before the grand jury. Marjorie stood beside me, her hand briefly touching my shoulder, a gesture of solidarity that said more than words could. She signed as a witness, her signature firm and decisive. The compliance department will issue a formal statement, she said. Any vendor associated with Dale Mercer is permanently banned from Northlake Rehab and our partner facilities. Your safety is our priority. My phone buzzed incessantly. 23 missed calls from my mother, 41 texts from Sloane, messages from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. I powered it off completely. The silence felt like breathing clean air after years of smoke. Through the glass doors, I could see police cars still parked outside, their lights painting red and blue streaks across the wet pavement. Dale was already gone, transported to federal holding. The rain had started again, soft against the windows. You did the right thing, Rahman said as she handed me copies of everything. Most victims never get this far. Your documentation made the difference. I thought about all the screenshots, the saved messages, the receipts tucked away in folders. Every small act of preservation had been a tiny rebellion, a whisper that someday I'd be strong enough to use them. The hotel manager approached with an envelope. Ms. Whitfield, our security footage from tonight has been preserved and copied for law enforcement. Additionally, we've documented every incident from both dinners for our own records. Outside, The night air hit my face, cool and sharp with the smell of rain on concrete. The parking lot was emptying, dinner guests hurrying to their cars, probably already texting about the drama they'd witnessed. By tomorrow, Dale's arrest would be gossip fodder throughout Riverton's business community. Lena waited by my car, having slipped out during the chaos. "You okay?" "More than okay," I said, surprising myself with the truth of it. She held up her phone, showing a news alert: local businessman arrested on federal fraud charges. The story was already breaking. Dale's mugshot accompanying the headline. His reputation, his business, his control all gone in one night. Lena observed. But it wasn't just one night. It was 15 years of documentation, months of building a case, weeks of legal preparation. Tonight was just the crescendo of a symphony I'd been composing since I was 14, gathering notes of evidence for a performance I'd hoped would never be necessary. The drive home was quiet, just the sound of windshield wipers marking time. At a red light, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. The woman looking back had a bruise fading on her cheekbone, but her eyes were clear, determined, unafraid. Back in my apartment at 11:45 p.m., I stood in my small kitchen, the same space where I'd made protein shakes that morning before everything changed. The protection order lay on my counter, official seals making it real, permanent, binding. My laptop sat open, showing emails from Rebecca about next steps, court dates, grand jury testimony. The federal case would move forward with or without my cooperation, but I'd testify. I'd tell every truth Dale had tried to bury under threats and manipulation. A knock at my door made me freeze, but it was just Mrs. Nguyen from the bakery, holding a container. "I heard what happened," she said simply, pressing the container of fresh banh mi into my hands. "You're brave. Your story will help others." After she left, I stood at my window, looking out at Quincy Street. Somewhere across town, my mother was probably crying in a house Dale could no longer pay for. Sloan was likely scheming to salvage something from the wreckage. But here, in my one-bedroom sanctuary, I was exactly where I needed to be. My phone, finally turned back on, showed one new message from Marjorie. "Take the week off. Rest. Heal. We'll be here when you're ready." I set the phone down and opened my journal, the one Lena had suggested I keep for my own processing, not evidence. My pen moved across the page, writing the words I'd wanted to say for 15 years. I don't need anyone to believe I'm special. I just need to believe my boundaries are worth defending. The rain outside had stopped. Through my window, I could see stars beginning to peek through the breaking clouds. Tomorrow would bring federal prosecutors, grand jury preparations, and the long road of legal proceedings. But tonight, for the first time since I was 14 years old, I was completely free from Dale Mercer's shadow. I closed my journal, turned off the lights, and prepared for bed. No more looking over my shoulder, no more documenting threats, no more fear disguised as family. The protection order on my counter wasn't just a legal document, it was a declaration of independence, signed and witnessed, permanent as the boundaries I'd finally learned to defend. My name is Kara Whitfield. I'm a physical therapist, a survivor, and living proof that sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold, it's served with federal charges and a permanent restraining order. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Please comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Your support means everything, and your own experiences matter too.